Well, hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Faithless Forrest.
And I'm Sam Geltz. And we want you to know, if you don't believe in God, you are not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and people committed to a life rooted in science and unfettered by supernatural beliefs.
On last week's show, we had a caller who said he'd never spoken to an atheist before, and so today we're offering a smorgasbord as we discuss our loss of faith or not loss of faith stories. But first we want to ask viewers how we sound out there. Please let us know of any audio problems you've got, and then call in on the number on the screen, and also be prepared to tell us which cable TV channel you're listening to, or if you're watching it streaming online.
And now we want to tell viewers about our show sponsors.
All right. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery. Tonight's meetup is at a new location. Tops and Flats.
Flats and Taps.
Taps and Flats. All right. Thank you. You can tell I haven't been there before. It's 7403 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee. I guess it's approximately near Westtown Mall?
Yeah.
All right. When you get there to the meetup, look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on a table. And as Matt Dillahunty at Atheist Experience says, welcome to our green screen for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee have several monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings of each month are usually lectures and lively roundtable discussions. The second Saturday, we hold the Skeptics Book Club. On the fourth Sunday, we are mixing it up, sometimes with a potluck get-together in a member's home, which we call a reflections meeting.
All righty. I didn't prepare anything real in-depth written up for In the News this week, other than earlier today, I read a New York Times article summarizing some of the president's recent executive orders banning immigration from certain countries. And I couldn't
including the ones where his businesses lay.
That too. But I couldn't help but think that as I read them, they say that priority will be given to allowing in people who are in, let's say, a religious minority in the country in which they're in. And, of course, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that means they're going to let the Christians in with priority. And there may be detractors as well as supporters of the measure who think of that that way. But I couldn't help but look at that and say, ISIS is predominantly Sunni in Iraq, which is a predominantly Shia nation. The way it's written for that executive order, ISIS would be given immigration priority.
Well, it's not like they pay attention. I think they just want all Muslims out from Muslims.
I'm making a point of just how poorly thought out that order is.
Oh, it's completely poorly thought out. The main thing this has really shown me is how people who call themselves Christians truly lack morals. That's the main lesson that I've learned from all of this.
Yes, certainly one of the Facebook memes is that when people in need of help come to you, you don't ask them what their religion is. Or if you do, maybe you need to get a better religion.
Yeah, it is revealing the bigotry amongst us.
All righty. Well, today's program, though, we're going to talk about our histories and maybe loss of faith stories. And although maybe you and I have already covered this before, either separately or not, Sam, do you want to start and maybe summarize what was your religious upbringing?
Well, my parents didn't really force religion on me when I was younger. I think that I was assumed Christian because you kind of are in this nation. You're just...
Assumed by your parents?
Assumed by everyone. Like, when you see a child, people will just, assume that you are a Christian. So I think that it was kind of pushed on me, not even directly by authority figures, but just by my peers being assumed to be Christian. So I think I did believe in God up until somewhere in high school, but I never really bought into the Jesus story. It just never made sense to me, even from my youngest age. So I can't say that I was ever a Christian, but I did believe in God there for a while.
So when you say didn't believe in the Jesus story,
It just never made sense. It still doesn't make sense.
actually summarize what you think the Jesus story means, because
Well, as a child, I think what I didn't get is, why is Jesus a proxy for God? Why I basically saw it as, they say they have one God, but they have two. Like, why would you have two? I think that was basically what turned me off of the whole experience. I think one of my most religious moments as a child was waking up early Sunday and being disappointed that it was not Saturday and they didn't have no Sunday morning cartoons. Instead of, they just had church services. And I remember
wishing it was a different day.
I wish there was cartoons on, but I was still awake, so I watched them. And I remember the preacher saying, all you got to do is believe, all you got to do is give yourself to God. And I remember being like, oh, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose, let's try it. And then, I'm like, I don't feel it. Well, that was lame.
I do understand that. The one day when I was sitting on a school bus, I thought to myself, because in hindsight, I know I was only thinking to myself that, all right, if there's a God out there, is he going to talk to me? And it was like, I'm just thinking into an empty phone line here.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the other line here. So I think that's similar to what you were just expressing.
Yeah, I just didn't get it. But I think I still wanted to believe in an afterlife. I still wanted to believe there was some benevolent force in the galaxy. But, I also believed in Santa Claus when I was that young, too. So kids believe in silly things, but you grow up and you stop believing in them, and some people don't, I guess.
Yeah. At what age would you have been, maybe when you had a concept of there being an afterlife?
I guess as long as I can remember.
Interesting. All righty.
I mean, I think that's pretty innate in people to want themselves to last forever.
So I'm a lifelong non-believer, and so I've never believed.
You didn't even have that much
in
when
an
you were
afterlife. Now, what I kind of remember was that I lived in a rural area, and so I spent a lot of time on school buses. I've already mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was while I was going to second grade one morning on the school bus ride, realizing my parents are going to die. What's more is they're going to die significantly sooner than my friends' parents, because my parents were older.
Mm-hmm.
Mother was 37 when I was born, father was 41. And I realized I was going to die as well, but it was that they were going to die. It was actually the more, say that made the heart clench a little bit and say, I have to face this, and there's no way out. You can't plead it away or anything. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess that's a big part of religion for a lot of people, feeling like they're going to see their loved ones again at some time, or that they're in a better place.
But in my case,
you didn't
knowing
know
that they would be gone one day, and there's nothing I can do about it. Second grade, that's 7 years old. I also understood arithmetic enough to know, well, that's potentially a long time off yet. The fact that there can be mortality even of infants, it didn't necessarily weigh into the equation. That I had, I think, a hidden assumption that we were all going to live to, let's say, a normal ripe old age.
Mm-hmm.
But, all righty. So, when you were in school, or maybe going to church, were there experiences that made you uncomfortable about religion?
Like I said, I think I kind of just was assumed Christian, so I still kind of fit in. I think I would have friends. My parents never took me to church, so I never really had a church experience. My mother would threaten me with church as a punishment. And I think that I did misbehave once and that I was taken to church. And it taught me, it straightened me up. I never wanted to go to that boring thing again. And so, yeah, I don't think... I never had any church experience other than as a punishment. And I think that around my peers, I was assumed Christian. I had believed in God. I think I knew even at that time that my thoughts and beliefs were different than theirs. Mm-hmm. And maybe even thought they were a little silly for being so strict on it at that point.
Ironic that you said they used attending church as a punishment.
I mean, it's boring. Like, who wants to sit there and listen to some fool talk about fantasy? Another...
But it's almost like they recognized it as a punishment, too. Mm. They didn't think of it as a corrective
they knew
action,
I wouldn't
did they?
Yeah, I don't think that... I mean, they knew that I wouldn't have liked it, so...
Yeah, so therefore...
Well,
they used it as a punishment.
On my father's side of the family... My grandmother was really, I think she was an atheist too, but she believed in church as for the social structure, and she tried to say, like, go to church, that's where you meet people and learn things. I think she still saw it as a way to learn morals, but even that side of the family was not religious.
All right.
And I also, when I was young, I learned, I think one of the main things that really gave me a heads up in religion is I learned a whole lot about mythology, Greek and Norse mythology, Egyptian too. Back in the day, Hercules and Xena were big. So,
the TV show actually kind of helped broaden your horizons.
Yeah. So I think that I kind of saw it as no different than those mythologies. It's just another mythology.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm trying to think back to my youth, when I would have been watching the Saturday morning cartoons in the 60s and 70s. There weren't really many that I can think of that were mythology-based. Now, there were, like, superheroes, Captain America and Aquaman.
Those are our modern-day mythology.
Yeah, well, that's why I brought them up, because it's the closest I could think of. And in the case of, some of them, like Spider-Man is alleged to be able to do something unusual because of radioactivity.
Science.
Yeah, well, it's... yes.
Science-based superheroes.
It was really, actually, though, really still, it was... And then an unexplainable miracle happened here that made him a superpower.
He was still a scientist himself, though.
Yeah. He made the sticky web stuff, and...
I think some of those superheroes promote science. Spider-Man's one of them.
When I think back to the cartoons, the very best one, though, was Johnny Quest. Have you even seen Johnny Quest?
Yeah, I have.
Because...
and the mini spoofs.
They had... Yeah, so something like real science was promoted there. But, of course, I can't let it go without mentioning Scooby-Doo. And how the bad guy was always a guy under a sheet or some other bad costume. There was never a supernatural explanation.
Until they got bored, and then they did. But
luckily, I've gotten old enough that I stopped watching.
That they did have a message there, because as we've definitely learned, the real monsters are always human.
Yep. So, how might your life, as a youngster, been different from your friends who were believers? And you weren't going to church Sunday mornings. Maybe they were. Were you left out of some social circles because of that?
No, I think that they tried to, there was kind of still that, come to my church type thing. Like, oh, you don't go to church. Like, oh, well, maybe you can come to my church. And I was never into it. like, why would I, like I said, I viewed it as a punishment. I'm like, why would I want to go to your church? And then they try to tell you how cool their church is. Like, oh, it's not like the other churches. Like, our teacher, our pastor plays guitar. He's not like the other ones. He's cool.
Alrighty. And so though we've kind of touched on it, I asked you about, did your parents know or understand? And you said one grandparent you thought, a grandmother, was maybe a non-believer. So what about the rest of the grandparents or aunts and uncles, cousins?
I mean, they're all pretty secular, really. Like, I have a pretty secular family. I think my immediate family, my mom and dad, didn't try intentionally not to discuss religion with us. And I remember even when I was in high school, I had brought up like religious questions to them, and they were just kind of. I think my dad was just kind of like, that's for you to decide. Like he even then he still didn't want to try to influence my ideas too much.
Alrighty.
So
they didn't refer you to any resources or anything, or?
No, I've always been pretty big into religion, obviously. So I've always done a lot of research on my own. I remember I had a friend. I remember even in middle school, I had a friend who was already an atheist, and I was not an atheist at that point, and we would have religious discussions. And I just feel foolish now looking back because I was on the side that, oh no, I think I really just wanted to live forever, wanted to have like a mysterious, spooky spirit floating around afterwards.
Alrighty. Well, it's your turn. There's interview questions here you're supposed to be asking me, and there may be things I've already given away, but...
Okay. What does your family think about your upbringing, your immediate...
So, growing up, my mother would attend, off and on, a Unitarian church. And once or twice ever, I went with... and I remember once being stuck in something that must have been like a Sunday school class, and because it was for kids. And we were hearing about a story from the Christian Bible about this guy who got pushed down a well by his brothers, and then he got out, and it was like... So, I've read the Bible since. I recognize where the story is. But as a child, it was like a story about people being mean to one another. And then at the end, they tried to explain it as if, well, this guy who had been so abused ultimately becomes a hero. And they were trying to teach a moral lesson about it, I believe. But the moral lesson is utterly unclear, and that is that, well, life is somehow just, and if you're the victim of injustices, before it's all over, you will prevail, and maybe by having been the victim of injustices, you might therefore have a more exalted position later in life. I remember being puzzled by what they were telling me and coming to the conclusion, well, maybe that's it. I think prior to that, and it would have happened during the holidays, we're decorating a Christmas tree, and my mother once explained to my sister and I the story about Jesus' birth and crucifixion as being why it's called Christmas. Now, she didn't explain it or describe it as a true story, and mostly what I remember about that moment was her describing how Jesus was nailed to a cross, and that didn't kill him, but a Roman soldier with a spear killed him. And I think she as much as said, it wasn't that he died of crucifixion then, was it?
It's almost like they got bored. The whole point of crucifixion is to leave them until they die, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, see, it's taking a while.
But somewhere in all of that, that conversation, my mother was telling me that it would not be appropriate for me to tell other children that there is no Santa Claus. That, in a sense, I was to go along. And the Jesus story as well. In other words, don't say anything. Let them have their I don't want to say the word fun. Let them have their fun. That seems so awful to describe the basic element of Christianity, which is child sacrifice, as fun. But that was the message Mother was trying to teach, was that don't pop anyone's bubble.
Well, we're definitely not following that now.
No, I have strayed from my mother's commandments. It might have come up most in the context of Santa Claus.
With children?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't go around telling children Santa Claus isn't real. But it's okay to tell adults God's not real.
Yeah, we had the discussion like this
because
once
they should know better.
at RET.
You should know better out there. Give us a call if you don't know better.
They're very good. Lines are open. The number is on the screen. There was a point I was going to make, and it's gone now. So I basically, though, grew up. I grew up without ever believing in any God, and in grade school, only once had something like a conversation with it regarding it. Once again, it was coming to be Christmas time, and we were doing these art projects. We had linoleum blocks. This is where you would carve down the surface, and then you would ink it up, and you push it on paper to print. And I had this block about this big, and I'd found this sketch of Santa Claus standing up that we were going to lay it on the block with carbon paper, tracing paper, and trace it on, and then carve it out. But I had enough space left over. I thought, well, if I slide it to the side, I can put something else here. And I chose to put the word Noel. Those people who have seen me spell understand why I would go for a 4-letter word, because I was pretty sure I couldn't misspell Noel. So I'd written that in, and I'd begun to carve it out. And my friend Mark says to me, well, those two don't really go together. And I said, well, what do you mean? Because to me, Christmas was about songs on the radio. So we had songs about Santa Claus.
Looks like we have a call.
All righty. I'm going to make a note about Noel so I remember where to come back.
Hello, caller. Can you give us a name or nickname?
You got it right the first time, caller.
Hey, caller.
All righty. Do you have a comment or a question for us, caller?
Yeah, I was wanting to call. Oh, I'm getting an echo. I'll try to ignore it.
Picking it up directly.
Anyway, I was hoping to call and make a correction before one of your other audiences called and made a correction. Earlier, you said that, I believe you implied that Jesus died because of the spear in his side.
That's the way Mother described it.
Okay.
And we're going to do an experiment here. Mute our shotgun mic. You keep going, caller.
Okay, the echo has disappeared. Oh, no, there's back. Anyway, actually, the spear in the side, even in case somebody does call in and wouldn't recognize it, the spear in the side was done after he was dead. So the spear in the side did not kill him. However, what appears to have killed him was what he drank before he died.
I don't remember that part of the story.
Oh, yeah. What happened was Jesus has suffered on the cross for like 3 hours, and finally he said a few words to John, the apostle, and then he said, I thirst. And then some fellow ran out of the crowd and gave him a drink of something that was on a sponge, a hyssop stalk. Jesus drank, and then he said, it is finished, and he died.
Okay, so caller, is my microphone back on? Caller, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, so the way my mother described it is that there was a sponge on the end of a spear dipped in vinegar, that was Mother said, and held up to him as a mock attempt to relieve his suffering. He said he was thirsty. Here, we'll give you some vinegar. Isn't that thoughtful of us?
Actually, that was, I think that was Luke that had that interpretation.
Very good. So your
chain
point,
of events.
Your
However,
point is there's more
the
than
other
one. There's more than one way he died.
Right. The other three said that they also raised some vinegar to his mouth, and he drank.
Yeah.
And then he said, it is finished, and he died. So it is possible that Jesus, instead of dying from crucifixion, which you don't normally die from within 3 hours, that he may have been poisoned by a compassionate fellow in the audience.
But meaning it's the easy way out.
And by the way, vinegar is translated as cheap wine. It wasn't like kitchen strength vinegar that you're accustomed to today.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yes, they are both the product of fermentation.
Right.
But I was going to say, of course, caller, I have it on absolute authority. Who could possibly contest it? Because I've seen the Renaissance paintings of Doubting Thomas sticking his finger in the wound in the side of Jesus. So it must be true.
Actually, that never happened.
Well, I've seen the paintings. It must be true.
Well, if you read the Bible, Jesus did dare Thomas to stick his fingers in the side, but Thomas never did that.
He just kind of points at it.
It just said, "Oh
Yeah.
my God."
All right.
That was it. But
Okay.
I mean,
but
we're
because
debating a
of the
fictional
sponge and the
story
hyssop
anyway.
stalk, what we will probably have happening very soon when people understand how Jesus actually died is those people that have tattoos of crosses on their pectoral muscles and stuff like that,
All righty. Yes.
they're going to have them lasered off,
All right.
and then they'll have to put a sponge on a stick
All righty.
as
Okay.
far as the divine way that Jesus died. And that big 80-foot cross that's out there on I-75,
They're going to have to change it too somehow.
well, they will have to cut off the limbs of it or the arms of it and put a big sponge there at the top. There, that way we can all have the correct symbol of how Jesus died.
All righty. Well, thank you for helping correct millennia of Christian error, caller.
I mean, like I said, it's yeah. Thanks, caller.
By the way, well, though we think we know the answer, do you watch us often, and are you local?
Yes.
All righty. Well, you're invited to come down to our meetup at the new location. Sam, what's the name of the new location?
Flats and taps.
Yeah, Flats and Taps.
I was
Wasn't
paying
it
attention.
the other way around?
No, that's what you had written.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
So thank you much, and we're going to clear the line in hopes that we get
Yeah.
some other callers.
Hopefully we get someone else coming through.
All righty.
Like I was saying, you're kind of debating a fictional story, anyways. It's like who really killed Darth Vader?
So let me finish the
They've
story.
changed the story around so many times.
I carved
retconned it,
Santa and I carved Noel in the linoleum block. And my friend Mark said, well, they don't match. And although he wasn't sophisticated enough to say it this way, well, one of them is a secular thing. Santa is secular.
Mhm.
And Noel is an angel from the Christian mythology. And I paired them together, and he recognized that as a mismatch. Although his explanation for why they didn't match, to me, was very hard to understand because I didn't particularly understand the difference between religious and secular things. Because the songs on the radio that time of the year, mixed them together all the time. It's Jingle Bells and A Little Drummer Boy and Walking Through a Winter Wonderland and Joy to the World, Here Comes the Lord. We're all intermixed. And I knew that some of them I didn't like nearly as much as others. But so that was the I think only conversation I actually had about religious belief in grade school, junior high school, or high school. It was only after I left high school where I had another such conversation with someone that was actually someone who had gone to my same high school, but we worked together in a grocery store. The next time I was asked, or where someone said, well, "You don't believe in God? How can you not?" Now, it may have been obvious to plenty of people because of the enthusiasm I had for science and so on. All righty. Well, I'm wondering if we should do
take a mid-program
the
break.
mid-program break at this time. I guess we got to get to our script. And in case you're tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions.
Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 o'clock to 5:55 Eastern on Knoxville Community Access Television, Channel 12 or Channel 194, depending on your local cable network. Tell your auto friends to watch us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
Today's show is live January 21st, 2017. And when you call in the number on your screen, and you can call in the number on your screen to speak with us, While we take a short break, please watch these informative videos about the ASK and RET.
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
All right, I'm back, and I've got a new host with me, but we'll finish out this break. The Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 1 or 2 times a week. We have evening meetups for fun, food, drink, and conversation. Find us online at knoxvilleatheist.org, and we want to remind you that the purpose of ASK is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, free thinkers, and other like-minded persons in the East Tennessee area. Our Tuesday meeting is going on right now at, well, I've written it Taps and Flats again, but I guess it's Flats and Taps, 7403 Kingston Pike, I guess approximately across from West Town Mall.
Right, so the second Sunday of most months is the Rationalists of East Tennessee Skeptics Book Club. The title of the next book is Utility of Force, The Art of War in the Modern World by Rupert Smith. Sunday, February the 12th at 2 p.m. The public is invited to participate. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps.
All righty. So we're going to do this again. We're going to talk to Rev this time with similar questions. So introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Riv Mutsu, and I moved to Knoxville from Maryville. I've lived most of my life now. We moved to Knoxville Maryville from Texas when I was 11 or 12 or so. So I've been here over half my life.
And summarize your religious upbringing during this time.
Right. So I was basically de facto Christian. It's what I was brought up in. It's what the worldview I was surrounded with was being projected of all that. It always surrounded me. We were in church from a very early age. You know, that's how life was. I never had a reason to question it. My reality was, well, of course this is what reality is. You know, that's just what my surroundings were. And, they were great people. I mean, wonderful people in the community. Grew up, friends. Mom seemed happy. I was pretty much brought up single because the divorce early on. But the community was great. And because things weren't terribly hard, everyone has their different life stories, but because things weren't terribly difficult, I think that kind of set into a point of complacency. I didn't really question things. It was just, this is how life is. And, you know.
Well, then that leads to the second question, though, and that is, well, were there experiences that gave you reason to doubt? I mean, you're here today, so there must be something in between.
Right. A lot of things I had were pretty much, it made it even harder to, I'll use the term of escaping religion. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
But there are some experiences that happened that really, the opposite of that when I was younger, confirmed, or, confirmation bias. I had a feeling that, well, this happened, and it must have been God, and it must have been God. And now I can look back and think that, well, why did I think that? Why didn't I think it was Krishna? Or why didn't I think it was Thor? Or why didn't I think all these things? Well, it's because what you're surrounded with. But now I can look back and analyze that and see that was the cause.
All righty. We've been alerted there's another caller. Hello, caller. This is Freethought Forum TV. Can we get a name or a nickname, please?
Charles from Central Illinois.
Well, hello, Charles. Thank you for calling. We're talking deconversion stories here today. Do you have a comment or a question for us?
I think the thing that finally sealed everything for me about religion was the moment Neil Armstrong said the words, "Houston, this is Tranquility Base. The Eagle has landed."
Uh-huh. I remember that moment.
I do. I was 12.
I was 10. So that means you are a 1957 model.
Yep.
I'm a 59.
Good vintage years both.
Yep. Oh, it was an exciting day. Man, that was an exciting day.
I realized that no religion anywhere was there anything comparable to that.
Uh-huh.
And that all the religious statements about how the world was and how the universe is meant that that could not have happened.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I tell people, I'm fond of this, that I'm the luckiest person to have ever lived because I was a 10-year-old boy when that happened. And you also are the luckiest person to have ever lived because you were a 12-year-old boy when that happened. Isn't it great?
Oh, yeah. It's like nowhere else in any of the religions comes close to describing the moon accurately. None of them. And none of them describe anything that we found through the scientific methods about the rest of the world as accurately as the scientific method.
Yep.
And if they're all wrong about how the universe is, how could they be right about the existence of a divine being?
Yep. Yep.
But also, so much of it is thrown into the kind of an extension of, the God of the gaps. I hear things basically, coin a phrase, admiration of the gaps. It's, well, that wasn't described, but it's beautiful, therefore it must be God, or it must be whatever. It's like...
Yes, the problem with that is that we're slowly but surely filling in lots and lots of the gaps. The God keeps, all the divine, creator beings and so forth, all keeps becoming more and more nebulous and more fuzzy and more unhooked up to the world.
So, Charles, I have a favorite example about that, but do you have one that you can maybe share with viewers about how God got smaller, either during our lifetimes or in the past few centuries? How did God get smaller?
Well, there was this, all the religious doctrines say you have to invoke the God to cure diseases.
Okay.
And Louis Pasteur, not invoking God, did what no theist of any stripe ever did.
Uh-huh.
He stopped rabies from killing a young boy.
Uh-huh.
Now, and Louis Pasteur was an atheist.
Uh-huh.
He didn't invoke God at all.
And
So-
there was another important vaccination developed. I think that guy's name was Jenner. I think it's Jenner.
Smallpox?
Very good, yeah.
Yeah.
We live in an age where, we've never lost a friend or relative to smallpox. Never.
And that's something that no theist concept can hope to state. And then there's the polio vaccine.
Yep. I have an acquaintance back in Minnesota where I grew up who I think he must be the last American to have gotten polio. He's an avid bicyclist because he needed to do that to try and rebuild muscle strength afterwards. But I think he's the youngest person I know of by far that has polio. He's 10 years older than I am.
So, if all the religious doctrines are correct, how did we stop all of these diseases without using them?
Yeah.
That's my all-time favorite
Yeah.
on that.
All
You
the
know?
various rituals, all the things described, ingredients.
The pastors and the priests have failed where science has succeeded, and I think that's why there was a real blossoming of Freethought in the late 19th century, the 1880s.
About 1870 with Robert Ingersoll
Yep,
going forward.
because they were already by then beginning to experience some of the real benefits of medical science.
Yeah. We had finally gotten a handle on what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
And
Well, Charles, we got a few more interviews to do here. I've got another host to bring on as well. We don't want to go too long.
yeah,
But thanks so much for calling and sharing your story as well.
Oh, thank you.
And we look forward to another week.
okay, bye.
Goodbye. All righty. I've forgotten.
It was
You were talking about
experiences.
confirmational bias, and you
Right.
realized when you got older that it had happened.
Right, that I wouldn't have had those notions unless I had some kind of something to base it off of, experiences when I was younger, a format to build around.
Alrighty. So, at what point then did you leave faith, or maybe there was a beginning where you got fuzzy, and then finally when you popped out as, to phrase the word, or to paraphrase.
Escaping religion.
I'm paraphrasing Dan Barker. He said,
Oh.
"One day I popped out as a brand new baby atheist," invoking a birth metaphor.
Right. So basically, in a way to wrap it up into a lot of other things with time consideration, it is kind of a gray mishmash of not sure when, but it feels like maybe approximately a decade ago, I really started taking a hard look at asking the questions of, why do these happen, and this says this, and this says this, and actually taking the time to start reading through the Bible a bit. Things didn't seem to match up, and so I started relying on people who I thought were experts in their field, your professional apologists, your Dr. William Lane Craig's and Dinesh D'Souza's and so on. People really charismatic and quick on the tongue, but ultimately it's just fallacious argument.
Sorry, say again, what kind of argument?
Fallacious argument.
Fallacious argument. For our viewers' benefits, what is a fallacious argument?
So it's something that's not grounded and centered around the precepts of, your logical methods.
Okay.
Something is something, something is not something, or something is not something, or you're non-contradictory middle, to where it can be it is, but it's not necessarily known.
All right.
And
In other words, you were able to spot that they were making invalid forms of argument. And so here they were, supposedly the people who were good at this, and you could find fault in their method.
right, and so they started going through these arguments, and I didn't recognize it at first because I was still very nervous about everything. It's very emotional. That's one of the biggest things is, people, for instance, yourself, Sam over here, other people who have not necessarily brought up in religion and not necessarily had the pressures of family and friends. It's a whole big mismatch of a whole lot of emotions to deal with. So it was really difficult to go through it. But over time, I started seeing, well, wait, this is just an appeal to emotion. Mm-hmm. And where's the substance? This person is saying this thing, and he's saying, but it is written that so on and so on, I think. but he's saying, well, he's just questioning what is written. And how does this in any way whatsoever answer this question or that question? So it all started flooding in, and it was really stressful. And
about how old were you when this was happening?
Oh, I'd say...
You were out of school, out of high school. Or
right. I'd say I was in the Air Force. I got out. I'd say it was a little less, probably young 20s. I started really questioning these things. And
one thing that I've learned from talking with people at the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee is there doesn't seem to be a particular age when this happens. There are some people that as children don't buy it. And there are some people that it's only in their elderly years that they say, you know, I think I've been had. And I'm surprised by that. I would have thought that there'd be kind of a tendency, especially for elderly people, to not give up faith, because then they got to maybe deal with their mortality in a way different than the rest of their life has been. And that, but you know, I guess if they're simply being honest with themselves, then they'd say, well, you know, wishing doesn't make it true.
Right. If wishing made it so comes to mind, just yeah.
We're down to less than 9 minutes now. Sam, can I ask you to just run the commercial again so that we can do another host swap? And we'll be back, viewers. And if you're viewing and you'd like to give a phone call asking about our loss of faith story, this will be your chance. Can you run the video?
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
All right. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Riv. How are you?
All right. So I guess we're just kind of switching up here. Loss of faith. Right for the transition, I was going to mention quickly the importance of the fear of how it affects other people. And once you get that inkling to start questioning things, you're immediately wrong because you think, oh, this is bad thoughts. I'm going to go to hell. And that really keeps people in a tight coil. Not to mention pressure from family or friends. What if I, so much fear centered around the atrocities that religion brings, mass majority of it. But anyway, that transitions. So can you summarize your religious upbringing?
I can. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian church. It was grim, I guess. I have been to other churches, and people are friendly, and there's the sermons are actually kind of interesting sometimes, but our church was focused on shame, and everybody was guilty, and everyone is a sinner, and
Born into it.
yes, and so it was a grim place, and I left it as soon as I could when I was out of my parents' home.
So, kind of transitioning into that, could you maybe describe some experiences that made you doubt, and then some that made you uncomfortable about religion in general? Maybe they're different things.
Even when I was in Sunday school, when I was young, of course, I knew better than to ask questions or make a comment, but I had problems with the ark. I knew you couldn't get two of everything in that ark, even when I was a small child.
You just compartmentalized or something like.
Oh yeah. So some of the things I just let. I can't quite get my head around this. The miracles in the Old Testament. So I wasn't a very good child in Sunday school. Although I never bucked the system, and I did what I was supposed to do. I went to a summer camp one year, and this was I think I was a preteen, and the camp was generally okay, but somewhere in the middle of the week, there was a young girl who was whisked out of her cabin in the morning and rushed down into the woods to the swimming pool where she was baptized. And the problem was she was a guest of one of the girls who was a member of the Church of Christ. She was a Catholic. And what had happened that evening, or the evening before the baptism, was that apparently her cabin mates had stayed up all night proselytizing to her. And by the time dawn arose, she was terrified of going to hell. And the adults came, and I think what bothered me so much was the adults were so anxious to get her baptized, regardless of the fact that her parents weren't there. No one consulted her parents. They just frightened her into the fear of hell. And now it wasn't as if we all went to the swimming pool and witnessed this. Nobody was there except 2 or 3 of the adults and her cabin counselor. And so the whole idea of scaring the child to death and being so rabid about grabbing her soul and saving her soul just creeped me out. Even when I was a preteen, this was appalling to me. I was ashamed, embarrassed, and I felt sorry for the girl. And I couldn't help wondering, what in the world were her parents going to do when she got home?
And furthermore, the adults on hand, the staff, those who are supposed to be protecting younger people, what brought them to that point where they're encouraging this kind of thing? Isn't that
It was because this particular denomination did believe and taught that no other Christian except those that attended this church would go to heaven. Catholics didn't go to heaven. Baptists didn't go to heaven.
like a cult?
Well, yes, a little bit. That there wasn't any room for any difference. There was no organ and no piano in the church because there were no organs and no pianos in the Bible. Therefore, we sang a cappella.
So there should have been no electricity. There should have been no anything.
Yeah, well, that somehow that didn't occur to us.
There
was a telephone, there was electricity, heat, light, but no piano. That was a sin.
Just like eating crustaceans, just like wearing mixed linens, just like boiling a kid in its mother's milk baby goat. Okay.
Yes. Yes. That was the church I was raised in.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say Southern Baptist, but I never really took the views of, I openly said, at the risk of going to hell, I always said, I don't believe everything in the Bible. Some of this maybe it's parables. Maybe it's meant to make a point. But the core, the John 3:16, that's the only true thing. But when you start reading the Bible and you look into it, it's not the only thing. There's all these, it's not just that. It's faith is, it's based on works and based on not works.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought the same way you did because I took a long time after those incidents to finally abandon my religion. I tried very hard to convince myself, but finally I just said my life would be a lot easier if I simply abandoned the Bible.
And you're not alone.